Your life.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Free Assange Vigil. This here Tuesday. This is the start of our 78th week in a row of bringing you the Free Assange Vigils, and I apparently left the volume up on my YouTube. There we go. Took care of that. We do it live. 18 months of these vigils consecutively, 78 straight weeks. Wow.
As a crew, we spent a month on the ground in DC this year. Like a literal month of the year has been spent on the ground.
Just in Washington, D.C.
And that's all thanks to you guys. Yeah, that's just in DC. And that's thanks to everybody watching that has been able to make that happen. And thank you to everyone that's making it happen again to start 2020 off the right way.
This is 2020.
2021. Whatever this next year is going to be.
Wow. That was awesome.
I'm tired.
At any rate, he's tired. I'm Steve Poikinen. We're going to be joined in a moment by Misty Winston, and Dame Cathy Vogan from Consortium News Live will be popping in momentarily. Before we get into any of that, though, we need to run down the numbers as they stand today, the 29th of December. I'm pretty sure it's still 2020. It's been 2020 for a freaking decade. Today marks 3,671 days of illegal and arbitrary detention for Julian Assange. 626 days since the WikiLeaks founder was trafficked from the Ecuadorian embassy after being sold to the United Kingdom for a $4.2 billion IMF loan. 6 days remain until District Judge Vanessa Baratzer, concierge to the U.S. State Department, reads the decision in Julian Assange's extraordinary rendition hearing. Action for Assange will be on the ground in Washington, D.C. to raise hell over this. If you're anywhere near the Washington, D.C. area, please join us. We're going to have a lot of people, and we're going to be gathering a lot of people from the Force the Vote event as well as Trump rally. This is going to be a pretty unique opportunity to show people exactly what a post-partisan movement looks like, and that we can all, it doesn't matter if we agree on nothing else. We can agree on this one thing, as we have to have a free Julian Assange if we want to have free speech, if we want to have investigative journalism going forward. 1,295 days of federal incarceration for whistleblower reality winner. That is just entirely too long, especially when you consider that all she did was shoot holes in the Russiagate narrative. On the positive side, 282 days of freedom for Chelsea Manning, who's streaming on Twitch at least Thursday through Sunday. And then 42 days Jeremy Hammond spent in a halfway house. I don't know how long he's been assigned there, and I should really find that out, because hopefully he can be done with that mess soon. Halfway house is better than prison, but not much. What's going on, Andrew? How you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. Looking forward to DC. I'm pretty pumped.
I checked out like last week. I was telling Sleepy Josh earlier today, I'm like, dude, the next 2.5 days of work are going to take like 6 months. Freaking ridiculous.
That's crazy.
And I'm doing stuff is not really enjoyable. The work isn't, at least 95% of it. So I know that I already saw at least one comment about it in the chat before I had to close my YouTube because I'm a dumbass and left the sound on. A lot of people are really concerned about a friend of the show here, Bill Benny. There was a tweet he put out the other evening that all it said is, "This is true." and he was quote tweeting someone who was talking about Bill and his wife and their house being attacked by a drone with a DEW attached to it. If you're unfamiliar with what DEW stands for, it's direct energy weapon. Yes, they're real. Yes, they exist. You can go to Lockheed Martin's website 5 years ago and pull up their promotional video for exactly what we just talked about, a direct energy weapon attached to a drone. And they're showing you the promo of their functional drone with an energy weapon attached, working so that you can give Lockheed Martin lots and lots and lots and lots of money, and they'll send you one. So I immediately reached out to Bill because I'm like, hey, this is concerning. Okay, could you add a little bit more detail, please? Because that's pretty thin, and if you're not going to give us the full picture, then all anybody's going to do is speculate, and nobody wants their imagination to run wild with what the U.S. government may do to a whistleblower. They would rather keep quiet. So this morning I heard back from him. I'm not going to read the email verbatim, but I will give the nuts and bolts as soon as my Proton decides to cooperate.
But real quick, this is the first time that it's like publicly recognized that the U.S. government is using directed energy weapons against its own population. Like that just is fucking that's fucking crazy. Like for political purposes, nonetheless.
Okay, so he says, for some time now, my wife and I been experiencing direct energy weapons in the form of pulsed energy projectiles, PEP, and constant for short periods energy sources, which we are detecting with gigahertz solutions HF 35C spectrum analyzer, which is something that like any of you guys could probably pick up in order to run these tests yourselves. We hear the impact of the PEPs on the house walls and on different types of metal. They cause pain and bruising for my wife, which is really fucked up. And then we're using the sounds provided on the gigahertz solutions to help distinguish different sounds we're hearing. We've been doing testing for other types of energy properties. Unfortunately, we don't have wide band spectrum analyzer working on that. But yeah, that's the long and short of it. So in the tweet, Bill was confirming that these things have happened. He wasn't saying that it just happened in that moment, right? So this has been ongoing and continuing. I don't really know what else to tell you guys other than that's incredibly messed up. That's just messed up.
It is messed up. It's insane.
I don't know if you guys have any questions or anything like that. I'd be happy to. No, we haven't talked about the Phoenix program, Jerry Lynn, not in any kind of detail. That's more of a slow news day thing, and I'm happy to do a show about it down the road. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. And I had something on Rockfin too. Tony watches closely. Thank you very much for the tip there on Rockfin. That's correct. You don't lose 30% of it like you would with YouTube, because YouTube, they're bastards.
So while we wait for our friends, do we want to do the EFF article? Talk about 230? Or do we know what happened with that? Did that get repealed with the stimulus?
Not yet, no. So what happened with that is over Christmas, the Democrats were bragging about this incredibly just laughable COVID relief package that they put together. Donald Trump said, no, I'm going to veto this, come back with $2,000 per U.S. citizen, and also, by the way, repeal Section 230. Because that has a lot to do with the Rona. Section 230 and coronavirus are, I can't even make a joke about that. This is the last little.
Well, you don't remember Event 231
that we have left, and yes, it does benefit big tech. Yes, it does. It also benefits us, and if we remove Section 230, what we're doing is we are giving social media platforms all of the power and all of the privileges of being publishing outlets online, with none of the responsibilities and none of the consequences that any other online publisher or print publisher has to deal with. It is ridiculous that, okay, so we had Donald Trump going, I'm going to veto the bill. We've got to get rid of the bill. It's a bad bill. It doesn't pay Americans enough. And there's all of this crap in it that has absolutely nothing to do with COVID relief. So I want you to bring me back a bill that doesn't have all of this unnecessary garbage in it. And oh, by the way, I brought my own. Here's my unnecessary garbage that I would like to tack onto this COVID relief bill. Trump went from going, no, this bill sucks and it's got too much pork in it, and I'm not going to sign it. I'm not going to sign it at all. He went from that to, okay, I'll sign a bill as long as you increase the amount of state-funded bribery that we give our people so that we can take more rights away from them. He went from that to, okay, look, I'm going to sign the original bill. Okay, let's do that. We're going to sign the original bill. But come back with the $2,000 and let me repeal 230 as part of COVID relief. And in case anybody was wondering, if Trump was going to stand up to anyone other than us, yeah, no. Turns out Trump's got a lot of bitch in him, a lot, and he decided to show everyone. Right after he pardoned some war criminals, right after it leaked out that the only person he's listening to on Julian Assange is the guy that he put into place to make sure that Julian Assange got illegally spied on and eventually trafficked. And that's Rich Grinnell. So if you're part of the whole crew that's tweeting at Trump about, you need to pardon Julian Assange, maybe switch it up a little bit and be like, yo, dude, do you know what Rich Grinnell did to you? He's going to make you the guy who everybody knows sent the CIA and UC Global to spy on Julian Assange. Sorry, no, Josh, she's not having problems. She'll be here in like 10 minutes. She hasn't even tried to get on the stream yet. I'm sorry that Nifty's having some issues. I don't even know. I don't. That's super weird. Didn't it happen to us once where he was just not cooperating?
Yeah, that's happened a couple times.
It's I don't see
We do it live.
You guys are coming in hella good.
If we say we do it live 3 times, sometimes Jason Burmis pops up in the chat. Or
he has the link. He could always hop in.
You should text him. Be like, dude, I said we do it live in the broadcast twice now.
It's like Beetlejuice.
One more time, you gotta show up. But yeah, I would let if you're tweeting at Trump to pardon Julian, I would let him know what kind of legacy Richard Grenell has left behind that Trump is going to have to wear, because nobody is going to remember Grenell's name in 2 months. Like, I forgot his name already.
Who?
You know, but Trump is going to have to wear that. All of Grenell's actions and the just absolute rat fucking that Trump gave Julian Assange while he's standing there at a podium as candidate Trump screaming, "I love the WikiLeaks. We need more WikiLeaks." While he's doing that,
Misty!
he's talking to Richard Grenell. And he's telling Richard Grenell, "Hey, we need to go get some back channels set up." They had that shit in place before Trump took office, while he was a candidate. We know that because we had the opportunity when we went to DC the first time to have an extended conversation about it with Cassandra Fairbanks, who actually has saved messages and, you know, text messages and screenshots and voicemail that she's been able to release over the last year. That backs all of that up. Like, the people who thought that Trump was doing anything other than pandering for votes when he said, "I love WikiLeaks," it's time for a reckoning, friends. It is.
And
have a
and
long
even-
talk with yourself.
And even when his administration's fucking forced to face it, all they do is put out a fucking fake tweet and then resend it an hour later. And the way propaganda fucking works, right, is more people are going to see that initial tweet that he got pardoned than see it's rescinded.
And a lot of people are going to see him talking about giving pardons to people that deserve them, but he's not actually going to do it. But people will hear him talk about it, and those people who only listen a little bit will remember that. And that's the first thing they heard, so that's what they'll remember. And so he'll get kind of credit with some people for talking about it, even if he doesn't do it. You know what I mean?
No, it's true. I ran into a couple of people at the lumberyard today who I'm a carpenter. I talk to a lot of other carpenters. We talk about all kinds of shit. Sometimes we eat lunch together and stuff like that. Like, we've got, conversations, and ran into a couple of people this morning that I hadn't seen since before the Christmas holidays and all that. And one of the guys was like, "Hey, you should be really stoked, huh?" And I'm like, "What?" And he was like, "Well, Trump pardoned Julian Assange." And I'm like, No. He's like, "Yeah.
That's exactly what I mean."
Yeah. And I'm like, No.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean, though, because he talked about it. And so that gets into people's consciousness, and they think, "Oh, he did it." And there it is. He gets credit for it without ever having done anything good. It's amazing how that works.
It was gut-wrenching to have that conversation, man. No, dude, here's what actually happened. And what happened was he pardoned 3 war criminals who massacred innocent Iraqi civilians, instead of the guy who, exposed the innocent civilians being massacred from a different set of war criminal soldiers. Yeah, that's how that went down. Oh, really? I didn't. Yeah. Who would make that up? Why would I make that up?
Right.
Fucking 8:15 in the morning. Do I look like I want to joke right now? It's freezing. Freezing. Dude, I did not move to the central coast of California so that I could wake up.
How cold does it get? How cold does it get?
Stupid cold for California.
Okay. Really,
30
though?
degrees is freaking cold for California. 28 degrees cold for California. Absolutely. Yeah. Especially when you've got all of the moisture from the ocean and all of this like extra ambient wetness in the air. And then it's going to be like freezing or hovering just above or below. No. Man,
I hate
like,
being cold,
okay,
man.
dude, I'm really, really happy that I'm wearing like comfy, fuzzy pants, but I can do that when it's pleasant out too. I can't.
Oh.
Like, it shouldn't be because
Listen, I can't wait to see. I cannot wait to see these goddamn pants. I'm not even kidding you. I've never been so excited about
It
anything in
really
my life.
does look like I skinned them up for comfort. It really does.
What color are they again? They're green, right?
They're like faded lime, like not bold lime, but muted lime. Yeah. With this shirt on, I look like a fucking Easter egg. Straight up.
Nice.
Dude, an incredibly handsome Easter egg.
I can't wait to see these pants. I'm pretty excited about it. Pictures will be taken. Pictures will be taken of the pants.
I would hope so. I had no idea who is. Okay. Word. We have anything from Cathy at this point? No, she should be in. Okay, so 6:30 she'll be in.
Okay, 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Should we hit something? Something.
We did 2:30. We could talk about all the Candles for Assange events that are coming up. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a whole bunch of dude. I saw Tulsa, Oklahoma today. Who's throwing a party for Julian Assange in Tulsa? That's awesome. Like,
yeah,
dude,
hit us up. We want to talk to you.
Yeah,
we want to talk to you. If you're having an event, like we want to talk, like we could talk to you for real.
It's true.
Let's push the shit out of that. Let's do it. Let's do it. Go team. You know what I'm saying?
We should start trying to reach out and have some of the local activists and shit like on. I think it'd be a good idea.
I'm trying to find her thread with all the.
Oh, I have it, and I'm pulling it up for the share screen. I think I have it. I at least have a large thread.
I just found the newest one, I think.
I can.
Yeah, I got it if you want me to share screen.
I think I am.
Okay.
So, yeah, here's us in DC. You guys know about that. Emma, should I just look for the U.S. ones, or are we going to go down? Frankfurt on Saturday the 2nd, Hamburg on the 4th, Wellington, New Zealand on the 4th, Brisbane, Australia on the 4th, London in front of the Old Bailey. We're going to be able to go to that event live while we're in DC that morning, so that we can see the reaction from the people out in front of the Old Bailey, like the moment that the decision is announced. San Francisco on Monday in front of the British consulate. Boulder and Denver, Colorado on the 2nd. And then New York's got events on the 3rd and the 4th. I believe. Or are they just the 3rd?
Who?
The Assange group from New York City. They're at the British consulate on the 3rd. Berlin and Munich on the 3rd. Berlin on the 4th. Amsterdam on the 3rd. Vienna, Austria. Toronto. Wow. Tulsa, Oklahoma on the 3rd. That Sunday. Cool. You're supposed to bring a chair.
That's a lot. I'm excited.
Mexico City. Yeah, dude. This is fantastic. It really is. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And I hopefully more will pop up, you know?
Yeah, if you guys want to do something on any of those days and you would like some help promoting it, just tag Alex in the Candles for Assange and tag us in it, and we'll help you get the word out.
Yeah, definitely.
So I know we don't have it, in our little scripts, but do we want to do just a quick kind of case update before Cathy hops on? Because we got a couple minutes. just to talk about like what Julian's facing, what the prosecution's argued so far, stuff like
We
that?
can. They released a video today of like inside of the prison where they ADX. I forget. I think it's WikiLeaks tweeted it out today. So you guys should go check that out.
Is it new, or is it the thing that like got them lawsuits and almost shut down? Because there was an expose a couple of years ago that.
Yeah, I think it's an old video, but they just tweeted it out.
Okay.
Is what I mean.
Yeah.
Like WikiLeaks like
is a
retweeted it.
freaking nightmare, you guys. Nightmare. Yeah. Okay, well, in case you forgot, Julian Assange is facing 17 charges under the Espionage Act of 1917 and an additional conspiracy to commit computer intrusion charge, which essentially, when you read out the indictment, criminalizes source protection, which is job number one of any journalist ever who's using a source for a story. So the death of investigative journalism is inside of this 18th charge. The 17 charges under the Espionage Act include merely receiving classified information. That's a new thing that the United States would like to set a legal precedent for, that it has international jurisdiction to charge anyone for receiving classified information or sharing classified information. This includes private citizens, absolutely 100%. The United States would like to be able to charge any private citizen anywhere on the planet under the Espionage Act for sharing or receiving classified information. Of course, publishing it will also get you another charge under the Espionage Act of 1917. So that happened. While they were in court for the witness testimony, because of reality, which is something that the U.S. prosecution had not had to face much of leading up to the witness round portion of the rendition hearing, reality got in the way of what they were trying to do and how they were trying to run their prosecution. So originally it started out with, okay, look, it's not that we're trying to criminalize journalism, guys. Come on. No, look, Julian Assange isn't even a journalist. And then after days of testimony, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that yes, this man is in fact a journalist, and WikiLeaks is an award-winning publication, and that's just the way that shit works, buddy. They went, okay, look, we are trying to criminalize journalism, but you're not supposed to know that. So what we're going to say is that Julian Assange put people in harm's way. And then after more witness testimony, when really all they had to do was look at the transcripts from Chelsea Manning's court-martial in 2013 to find this out, they did once again prove that no individual had ever come to harm by a release of any WikiLeaks publication, including the many that they're trying to prosecute him for. So they went, okay, look, well, that's not it. What we're going after him for is because he had a conversation with Chelsea Manning. And even though we can't prove that he was on the other end of that conversation, Chelsea Manning already went to jail, so she must be guilty. So we're going to say that the person on the other end of that conversation was Julian Assange, even though, again, we have no idea, can't prove it.
I think it was accepted in Chelsea's case that they cannot prove that it was him.
Yeah.
I think it was Nathaniel something.
Nathaniel Frank.
Yeah.
What was the name? At any rate, so they were like, this conversation took place, and in this conversation, there's part of a discussion about maybe possibly somewhere down the road, this Nathaniel Frank person who we're claiming is Julian Assange, but again, we have no proof, but we're claiming it's Julian Assange, says that they would be able to help Chelsea Manning protect her identity and maybe, bypass some security. So that is why this entire case is being brought before you right now. This one conversation, when even though we already know that Chelsea Manning didn't need a username or password to access any of the materials she sent to WikiLeaks, we're going to act like this conversation is nefarious enough to torture a man and put him in prison for 175 years. And when that fell on its face, because once again, it came out that Chelsea Manning didn't need a username or password to access any of this material, they went, okay, so we're really charging him under 17 counts under the Espionage Act and another additional count that wink wink totally doesn't criminalize journalism. We're really shit. We're out of ideas. We don't like this guy, and we would like him gone. And if that's just cool with you, Judge, we'd like to go ahead and get this done with. That's the entire fucking prosecution right there. All of that shit happened. Like if you guys weren't with us when we were, at least following along with the vigils or up early when we were live streaming the court coverage, man, you missed a lot, because there were some just absolutely mind-blowing moments that took place throughout. No, I'm not saying our coverage, but just the hearing.
Yes.
The hearing was incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Well, it's kind of like when I have this problem all the time when I talk to people and I start telling them all of the crazy shit, the fact that he was spied on when he was in the embassy, like, cameras and microphones in bathrooms, and like his conversations with his lawyers. And then you mentioned all of the stuff that you just mentioned about the actual hearings and all of the bullshit in the hearings. And then you start talking about all of the other things that are just completely fucked up. And you realize that you sound like a crazy person, but all of this really happened. But you said, like, you couldn't write this. I mean, it's nonsense. There's so much bullshit surrounding this case that makes no sense whatsoever. And in a sane world, this case would have been, first of all, it would have never been brought. But now there's a dozen different reasons why it should be thrown out. Right now, there's a dozen different reasons, and we're still doing it.
And that doesn't even get into the changing of the fucking indictment, like 11 times, not really 11, but multiple times since he was in prison, to the point that they held the first round of hearings, right, already held, and then released another indictment and could basically restarted the process. They rearrested him in court on the first day of the fucking trial.
After kicking out all of the NGO observing bodies from being able to monitor the proceedings, to the point to where Reporters Without Borders had to park somebody in the line at 6 a.m. every day for a month on the off chance that maybe they could get in that day.
Well, and they kept him away from his lawyers. They wouldn't give him his paperwork or any access to the internet or his court case or any of that stuff. They finally gave him a laptop after who even knows how long. And when they did the keys were glued down on the keyboard. Right now he doesn't have winter clothes, and he's got books in his window. And seriously.
And they put everybody with COVID on his wing with his chronic lung infection.
And it makes you sound like a crazy person when you start talking about it, because that's a lot of, like, I can't believe this is happening in real life. And nobody seems to care at all. I mean, we do. But I know that people just don't know, but it's a lot. It's so out in the open, like broad daylight. Shenanigans.
It's torture on Front Street. Woo. It is. All day, every day. Torture. Yeah. Right there. Right out in the, look, I realize that people aren't like hanging out in Belmarsh, but it's not like they're being shy about this.
Right.
So I guess it helps if you have like multiple tech companies and governments that are willing to help censor people who are telling the truth about this, if you're going to just broad daylight torture someone.
They literally had sustained protests there for the entire time at the Guantanamo Bay of the United Kingdom, Belmarsh prison, for the entire time that Julian Assange has been in prison. Like, at what other point in history has that facility gotten so much attention and so much scrutiny for how horrible they treat people?
Only in V for Vendetta.
Mm-hmm. That is the perfect time to have you join us. Hello.
It's Cathy Vogan.
Hi.
How are you?
I've been pretty busy, and yes, we're locking down again in Sydney a little bit, but only up on the tip of a peninsula for the moment. but we just hope it doesn't spread.
Does the Rona
geographically.
only hang out on the tip of the peninsula, and that's it?
Doesn't usually. It usually gravitates towards the big cities, but it's about 40 kilometers north of Sydney at the tip of a peninsula.
See,
Which
here
is
the coronavirus only comes out after 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it can't pass around plastic. When it touches plastic, it just immediately runs away.
Doesn't live on surfaces and Amazon warehouses, but only exists at that point between the table that you're sitting at in a restaurant and the bathroom, unless you put your mask on, and then it doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
We have
Unless it does, in which case you can't visit your relative while they're dying in a nursing home or hospital.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, well, we're being very careful about that here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and except for our state now, which has had this mysterious cluster come from the United States. So we're going to call it the American disease now here in Australia. It got from the airport to the tip of the peninsula, Avalon Beach. Something happened. We don't know how it got up there, but there's been a cluster of over 120 people that have caught it. So not too, we don't have too many very sick, but it's easy to block off. But yeah, everywhere apart from that, Australia is Rona free. We were too, but little bugger's back with a vengeance. So we'll just push him into the sea.
Well, I'm glad to hear that everything's going okay out there, at the very least. So just before you hopped on, actually, we were talking about like the most disturbing things about Julian's case, whether it was what the prosecution was arguing or the events surrounding it. I would love to get your opinion on some of the things that have just taken you back the most about the way this is all unfolding.
Yeah, so that's a long list of
Yes,
things.
we just went through a lot of it.
It's a 2-hour show.
Well, yes, I think that you know, the most devastating for me was Nigel Blackwood saying that SAMS and perpetual solitary confinement could be managed with the right medication. That just, you know, was like a stab in the heart to me. When you feel for others and then you have to jump into his shoes or his heart, it feels very cold in there, and it's, you know, it brings out a certain amount of outrage. You know, we know well how all the damage that SAMS does. Even if you didn't have that kind of damage before you moved in, it would do it. And Maureen Baird has commented on that. She was a former prison officer, but at a fairly high level, and she was responsible for administering SAMS. You know, so that her accounts, you know, just state this to be forever what I would call an oubliette. That's a French word from the verb oublier, to forget. It's a forgetting hole. And we used to have those, you know, in medieval times in France, in the castle, maybe in some other countries too. I'm sure there may be a few tucked away in Britain, but it would be, you know, somebody wanted to get rid of. There was at the king's level, there was a kind of a door, and that just went straight down the tower. And if one didn't die on impact, one was completely forgotten about.
If you've ever seen the movie Labyrinth,
I have.
They talk about.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was always struck when I went to live in France that, you know, the first time I went to visit castles on the Loire and other places, my partner explained to me what an oubliette was. And of course, I knew it came from the verb to forget. So we don't have that in English. It's not incorporated in those three letters, you know, of SAMS. But that's essentially our 21st century version of it. And, you know, it is dished out by, well, advice is given and recommended by, you know, the same parties that were spying on Julian Assange. This all ties up. There has been a lot of focus on UC Global after a devastating 3 days, you know, hearing all of the terrible details about Julian's health and what he was facing. Noted by a prosecutor at the what do you call it? DDP, I think, CP Sook, maybe it is. Yeah, Crown Prosecution Service, former prosecutor said that, now I've just forgotten because I was so concentrated on getting that alphabet thing right. But you know, it's a terrible thing. Please ask me to put on the tape and I will resume this discussion because it's a terribly important one. Sorry, what I was meaning to say, I will say this because there has been a lot of focus on UC Global after the 3 days of total depression for all of us and fear, outright fear and outrage. And there has been, you know, they have not come in the chronological order in which they would occur. So there's been a lot of focus on UC Global. There's been a lot of focus on SAMS, but what about not so much focus on the connection between the two, the injustice, the irony of that connection? And that's sort of what I wanted to focus on in my interview with George Christensen. I wanted to draw those two together and see what his reaction was at this kind of injustice, which did come out momentarily when Maureen Baird was re-questioned by Mark Summers. So yes, let's pass to Maureen Baird and a little bit of Lindsay Lewis as well. And then we'll look at the situation in Australia, what we think here should be done.
Okay, because we do have that video with you and George queued up and ready to go.
Yes, that would be lovely if you could play that.
All right, Sleepy Josh, do magic.
All right, I'm kicking it over.
You've mentioned the deep state that Trump wasn't particularly fond of. So at one point he had taken on the CIA, and Chuck Schumer told him that that was not a wise thing to do because they have 6 ways till Sunday to get back at you. Now, Joe Lauria and I were present in the extradition hearing the whole month of it. What we learned there, 2 things, very important things about the CIA, intelligence agencies, the American Friends, as they were called, is that UC Global were spying on Julian Assange in the embassy, on his lawyers, stop it doctors, because we and can't see the picture, and I'm showing of the graphics as well, so it would be really good to see it. Not just here.
Though they can see it in the audience.
Oh, can they? So sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. It's set up weird. We can hear it. We can't see it on our end.
But no, the people can see it.
Did people hear me?
All the good folks
at
home watching can see it.
They heard me interrupting?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I'll just replay it. It's all right.
Yeah, you're fine.
We do it live. We do it live.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all good.
All right, I'm gonna replay it.
You've mentioned the deep state that Trump wasn't particularly fond of. So at one point he had taken on the CIA, and Chuck Schumer told him that that was not a wise thing to do because they have 6 ways till Sunday to get back at you. Now, Joe Lauria and I were present in the extradition hearing the whole month of it. What we learned there, 2 things, very important things about the CIA, intelligence agencies, the American Friends, as they were called, is that UC Global were spying on Julian Assange in the embassy, on his lawyers, doctors, and all visitors on behalf of the American Friends. We also learned from an expert witness, Maureen Baird. She was somebody who had been responsible for administering SAMs, special administrative measures. And what was revealed was that the intelligence agencies, and specifically the CIA, also weighed in on whether a particular prisoner should get SAMs. So this is a stitch up, if ever, when they are gathering the evidence and spying on the defense, but also responsible in a large way for dealing out the punishment of being silenced for the rest of his life. Don't you think that that's another reason why President Trump would want to stick it to them?
Well, I say that by doing this, it would be giving a poke in the eye to the deep state. So, yeah, we can say it would be sticking it to them. But look, the things that you've outlined there are just absolutely outrageous. I don't know how any court could extradite someone knowing that all of their personal legal communications had been spied upon by the side that wants to extradite him. That is a clear signal that there would not be a fair trial, because there is this rule of law in the UK, a rule of law supposedly in the US, supposedly in the UK, that those conversations are privileged, not to be spied on, yet they were. So how on earth can anyone have a fair trial?
The Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions stated that it was not in the public interest to prosecute a journalist for reporting on war crimes. That in the case of Dan Oakes, an ABC journalist. It seems to me that if the Australian Federal Police did drop the charges against the ABC journalist, and he was doing something very similar to Julian Assange, he was reporting on war crimes in Afghanistan and using classified information. So how can we still be so indifferent to Julian and just let it happen to him?
You've just outlined a clear argument that if Julian Assange ever comes back to Australia and there is an extradition case in Australia, which is possible, the exact reason legally why he should not be extradited. Director of Public Prosecutions, Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions, no less. That is a serious sort of a role where you make these deliberations based on facts of law and what's in the public interest. And that Director of Public Prosecution speaks for the Commonwealth of Australia. That view would mean that if Britain was following the same sort of legal philosophy that the Australian Commonwealth follows, that you would not be extraditing that person. You would not be extraditing Julian Assange.
Yeah.
You're back.
I think that is one of the most well sectioned pieces, specifically focusing on the UC Global and like the threat and how it escalates into SAMS, because that's something I don't even think that we had put together in that sort of way on the show. Like, we had talked about SAMS really in depth in the UC Global case, but not the fact that the people spying on him will be the ones determining if he's placed in it.
Yes, it's an end-to-end stitch up. That's how I see it. That's the most shocking thing.
Yeah, for sure. And it's it's really terrifying. And that's why I think it's so, depressing that more people aren't paying attention, because this is like we've all said, it doesn't stop at Assange. This comes for all of us at some point. And the fact that they're doing it right in broad daylight, and while they're at it, while they're doing what they're doing to Julian Assange, they're also completely destroying the First Amendment, like out in the open. Hey, look at us. But nobody's covering it, so they can get away with it. And that sucks.
Julian's getting good press in Australia. Good. That's completely changed. People are listening. People are getting angry in Australia, but we also need a president. We need someone at that level with that level of power to stop this crazy thing. I was trying to think of a clever way to put CIA in the middle you could do if it was a graphic, but it's a crazy thing that needs that level of power and that level of outrage as well from the Australian people, which George promises is coming if we don't get a sensible result here.
Yeah, I think I've definitely seen like more attention being paid, even in the States, not because of the media. The media still doesn't cover it. But, social media has been getting a lot of traction. So, that is good. It's just,
the people in the Assange community have been working nonstop, basically since the September hearings, to not just raise awareness like we've always been doing, but to really put pressure on the media and on independent media. Not just to say something, but to actually understand what's going on, to really take a look at this, and then maybe do something about it, because we successfully more or less elbowed some of the larger, like, left-ish leaning, or at least brand marketed large platform shows to covering the September hearings, which they did for like a total combined of maybe 26 minutes. But so many other smaller channels, so many established but still independent, like, news outlets have done such an amazing job since September, plus all of these tweet storms that Mark Lubers and the Anonymous crew have been putting together every single Friday at 8 p.m. London time, which you should all be participating in as well too. Please do that. If you have a Twitter account, take part in the weekly Assange tweet storms. That has raised a lot of awareness, and it's gotten people who had publicly spoken out against WikiLeaks to make incredibly sincere apology videos and advocate for the pardon of Julian Assange. In this case,
just like Nils Melzer, that's how he starts off.
Yeah. It turns out when you push aside the propaganda for 10 seconds and actually look at what's going on, you're suddenly horrified.
Yeah.
Oh my God, how could they do this to another?
Nils Melzer, he legitimately, like, kind of like, not saved me, but kept me going in terms of, like, fighting for Assange. Like, I was in a really, like, dark place where I just didn't, like, there was no hope, and I just couldn't do it anymore, and I was tired. And then here comes Nils Melzer, this guy who used to buy into the propaganda and who, was very reluctant to even look at this case. And then when he did what all, like, grown ass adults should do. When there was evidence that was contradictory to his previous beliefs, he changed his mind. That's great. That's amazing. And I was like, it was this boost of energy that I needed. And here he is, he's got this platform, and he's kind of high profile, and he's respected and educated. And I was like, this is what I needed. Who did I need right then?
But most importantly, he speaks Swedish.
Yes.
And he was able to read all of the case history, and he, in a PDF that he has published, and that's an attachment to a response to the Swedish government. He identified around 50 violations of due process over the long years of the case of Julian Assange being delayed. The Crown, there's another link up. The Crown Prosecution Service and the Swedish prosecution, and with the former as being advisors or puppeteers, if you like. It sounds that has that tone at times. But I was going to say to you,
Keir Starmer at the time.
Pardon?
They were under the direction of Keir Starmer at the time.
Indeed, they were.
Yeah, and Keir Starmer has now been rewarded with almost complete and total ownership of the Labour Party.
Yes, but Stefani Marizzi tells us that there are no documents released as yet that implicate Keir Starmer directly. We have to remember that. But having said that, the department was under his direction. So, if you don't know what your staff are doing, then who's telling them what to do?
Right.
Right. But
with
Steve,
something as high profile as Julian Assange's case, even a decade ago.
Well, that's what I was just going to say to you, Steve. Some of, and you too, some of us have been going hard at it for 10, maybe 11, nearly 11 years now. And Julian's story is, it's in waves, peaks and troughs, especially in Australia. We gave him, 10 years ago, we gave him the equivalent of our Pulitzer Prize, right, for his work. He won you know, or in a rush, he won 20, and over a few years, at least 20 other journalism awards. But, you know, put aside the smear campaign. We know about that. People are getting over it. You know, there was also in December 2018 here, the introduction of the Espionage and Foreign Interference Act, which replaced the 1914 Crimes Act, which is the cousin of the Espionage Act, right? It was just an update. But what it did was bring us into lockstep with the US 1917, you know, where there were certain updates. And there was also a dodgy update about, you know, that could have criminalized you know, helping somebody crack a password. That was very, very, you know, suspicious addendum to it. But basically, you know, there was a lot of articles written by investigative journalists from Crikey, for example. Bernard Kane, Helen Razor wrote some very good articles about the impact, the chilling effect that would have on media in Australia. And then you had, you know, fast forward, you have the raid of the ABC, our national broadcaster. John Lyons is the head of investigations there. He is live tweeting the whole thing, and he does an interview outside. He holds up the warrant. Written at the top is the Crimes Act of 1914, right? So it's still, you know, we're still under that, but my God, after Dan Oakes was arrested, the ABC here totally defied those forces and continued the investigation into war crimes, produced another amazing report by the Four Corners team. Mark Willesee won our equivalent of the Pulitzer Prize again for exposing war crimes in Afghanistan, right? We have come full circle here. This is exactly what it was happening to Julian 10 years ago, and attitudes are really improving. So I do feel that there's going to be a lot of pressure from Australia if we don't get this, you know, reasonable result on the 4th of January.
And there really is only one reasonable result. And that, in my mind, would include a dismissal of all charges and
no appeal.
No appeal, immediate recompense, financial and whatever else Julian Assange wants for the decade of torture. That would be reasonable.
That was recommended. That was part of the recommendations of the European Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, was compensation. Not only let the man free, give him his freedom, right to freedom of movement, but give him, you know, something to, I don't know, maybe go on he would never go on a long holiday, would he?
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I know I can't. I can't imagine.
Yeah, but we haven't been through what he's been through.
Yeah.
It's just got really like a horror film, surrounded by 65 people who can give him the disease that will take him out, given his chronic.
Can you imagine if we lived in the world that you guys just talked about, where in a sane world he would just be like charges dropped and he would get, you know, some kind of, you know, I mean, he, like, statues should be made. There should be like a Julian Assange Day in every country. Like, if we lived in a sane world, it's
well,
really
we do live in that world now. The world of media has really changed over 10 years. WikiLeaks invented these anonymous Dropbox. Now, I think Joe said over 70 major media organizations have the anonymous Dropbox. So, you know, the world has adapted. We should be able to, you know, get over it, grow up, and accept that this is the age of information, and people will find out anyway, and your security is shit. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that word on air.
Oh, no.
You're allowed to swear.
No, you're fine.
You can totally swear.
Yeah.
You should hear some of my profanity-laced rants.
YouTube already heavily censors the channel, so it you know, like, what are they going to do? Take it away from us? We're already on Rockfin and DLive and Odyssey and other platforms. Kick us off of YouTube for telling the truth. That's what you do anyway. Your YouTube.
I don't know. I think, you have to look at the guidelines and see what they might interpret as, or even realize to be defamation. I don't know. It all depends on, with YouTube, it all depends on people complaining about you.
No,
You know? I've
it,
had copyright strikes because a certain opera house in Sydney
yeah,
put in a complaint because I had published Julian Assange's speech and written an article about it as well. It was getting attention, and they filed a copyright claim on Julian's words.
yeah.
Nice.
Whatever
That
they
scared
can,
the hell out
whatever
of
they can
me.
do to like frustrate us or to try to get us to quit, they're going to do. And I mean, all you have to do is read when WikiLeaks met Google, or when Google met WikiLeaks, to have a fairly clear picture of what we're up against here with YouTube.
Just to show the level of censorship, if everyone on the MCSC network, Nico House's channel, or the A4A channel, look down, compare the number of viewers, which is 70 on Nico's channel, to the 103 likes. And then think about any other live stream that you've seen in the history of your time on YouTube. Is there ever a time where you have almost twice as many likes?
That's weird.
And it happens consistently across us and Slow News Day. Like, it's insane.
Every single time. Every single time.
YouTube locked me and Joe out. We had a bit of a crisis. You may have noticed there were a couple of days where nothing went out on CN Live. I went to Canberra. I got locked out, and then Joe got locked out trying to get me back in.
They've been doing that to a lot of journalists and a lot of news organizations. It's crazy. Like, this is what I'm talking about. This is like the slow roll of all of the censorship. I mean, they're even censoring like established news organizations just because they come, like Venezuela Analysis or whatever, or Telesur gets censored, or what. These are established news organizations, and they're being censored. And not only are they being censored, they're being flagged as like some, nefarious state actor, like, Russia affiliated TV or whatever. It's fucking RT. Like, calm down. It's Lee Camp. It's, Chris Hedges. It's just so obvious what they're doing. And if they can do it to established news organizations, they have been doing it to regular people. Look at how many people we've seen recently get suspended on Twitter or, get banned on Twitter. I mean, just from my friends, there's a crap ton of people who have been suspended or banned over the past few months, and it's only going to get worse. I mean,
if I could just say, what I concluded is that Consortium News was not censored. It was just this crazy, very inefficient form of security that exists, on Google to sign into a YouTube channel. We just found it was going round and round and round and round in circles. And the more we tried to chase it round in circles, the more suspicious it thought our behavior to be. It's a kind of an automatic pilot that hasn't really figured out. I had to come back to Sydney, and then Joe had to come here to the studio, and then we got in. So it was, I don't think it was that. And we haven't had any trouble on Twitter either. No, but you can complain about, YouTube. You can't even get in contact with him if,
No.
I don't think that they censored us, but the default was kind of like, we can't even call you. This is our channel. For fuck's sake, let us in. Right? Mm-hmm. You keep saying, and maybe we're not sure you're you. Go fuck yourself, really. Sorry. Look, you've set me off now, Steve.
I have that effect.
That's the problem. That is a problem as well. That you once you move to another place, how can that be? Even a channel you've been managing for 2 years, you go to another place and it tells you have to go 300 kilometers, so it trusts you again.
Yeah. Why is YouTube monitoring where you're going? Why is YouTube tracking
Good
your
question.
location? Why does YouTube care if you're 300 miles away from your studio?
Well,
Why?
I think it checks your usual IP address to see if it looks like it's the right person or it's somebody trying to break into a channel, which probably happens quite a lot. But they've tried to find an AI solution for getting stopping that.
They've done this to a friend of the show, Ryan Christian, Last American Vagabond. His main channel, they told him over and over and over again, we don't think you're you. We think you're impersonating yourself. And because we think that you are impersonating yourself, we're going to take away your channel. They just suspended him on Twitter today, too. I keep getting phone calls from people in independent media who are having their channels yanked or having their livelihoods threatened with like just bullshit. You're an accessory to terrorism charges because you accurately reported on the white helmets, Vanessa Beeley. So we're going to threaten you with legal action. You know, and today again, I'm coming home from work, phone rings. I look down, it's Ryan. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm pretty sure I know how this call is going to go. And yeah, I suspended from Twitter. And this is a guy who only uses mainstream news for his source material.
Right.
When he does his show.
Yeah. But, you know, well, maybe it's like a whack-a-mole thing, you know, when people stick their heads up too high.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I don't say maybe.
Yeah. And what really sucks, Cathy, is that the largest search engine in the world is Google. The second largest search engine in the world is YouTube, which is also the first largest video platform in the world. There's almost a stranglehold on content, which is why we're so thankful to be able to be streaming this through Rockfin right now, and why we frequently encourage people to ditch YouTube and come over to Rockfin.
I don't see it that way, Steve. I mean, I've been on YouTube since I think 2006, and you know, over time, well, it had its heyday. I saw it as a magnificent repository of the world's audiovisual history.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we should have to leave kind of the big library and go over to another place. The problem is, you know, if things are not being allowed to be stored there, and this is, you know, it's the same old history catching up.
Well, and they've cleaned
anything
house
that's
with
truthful should be there. Defamatory, get you know, let's have a talk about that, whether it is defamatory or not. But you know, it's all quite automated. People report you for copyright violation. They've always taken down, you know, the film straight away without question, and then the onus is on you. And you know, it was very vexatious against me, but I had to delete the film finally to save my channel. But yeah, I don't think that we should be driven away, because there's billions and billions of beautiful historical films there. I mean, even people restoring them. Yeah, we don't want to go away. We want it to be fixed.
There's also tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of videos that have been removed because they travel outside of the narrative. So it's a library for what Silicon Valley believes we are allowed to see.
Yep, it's got that way, yeah.
There are other libraries that are currently being built that are comprised of everything, as opposed to just what Silicon Valley wants us to see. And I would like to see those platforms achieve, if not YouTube levels of success, relative to YouTube levels of success, based solely on the fact that they're not out here trying to censor us.
Well, I don't know. I mean, what I've found over the many years is that it is very much driven by the opinion of your viewers. If they complain, it's just like it's like they push the button, and there doesn't seem to be a human behind that decision, really. So to say they, I mean, we have to think that maybe we've got so adversarial among each other that we're always, you know, reporting, complaining, and you know, wanting and blocking. And you know, I don't think that YouTube is, you know, you can't get a human on the other side of the phone. I think it's so huge. It's really run by AI, and there's some serious tweaking to do to make it palatable again. And that could even involve, you know, people doing questionnaires to see what they don't want to say what they don't want to see.
Well, you'd have,
and then other people say, "No, I'll see it all." right? And
You'd
take
have to decouple YouTube
responsibility.
from the government first if you
Yeah.
wanted to have that conversation with them.
Yeah.
You have that
But
problem
there's no
come
daylight
around as well.
between
True.
Apple, or there's no daylight between Alphabet and the government. There's no
No.
daylight between Google or YouTube and the
Yeah.
government because Alphabet's the parent company.
Yeah, those Silicon Valley, like big tech, nameless, faceless, techno bro, whatever guys, they are the government. Like that's it. I mean, all of the corporations own your government, all of them. Like it's not even, it's the tech bros, it's big oil, you don't have government.
Yeah.
There are corporations who own your government. There is no breathing space between any of those people and your elected officials. None. Zero. None. Not at all. They write the bills. They lobby the politicians to get those bills passed. You don't have that's what it's kind of funny to me to see people kind of going after politicians sometimes, because that's not who is really making the decisions. You need to go after the people writing the bills and paying politicians to pass them, because politicians don't think for themselves. They don't. I mean, they're completely owned and operated by corporations.
Do you mean that Donald Trump wouldn't think of himself when it came to a pardon for Julian Assange or Edward Snowden?
I think he thinks that he can act independently, but in the 4 years of him being in office,
He hasn't at all.
when he's tried to act independently, he's been swatted down immediately.
It just
and
happened
for good
again.
or ill. For good or for ill,
Well, he's not the first
allowed to do
president
things
either.
on his own. They give him a Twitter account, and he can
Yeah.
tweet what he wants. But when it comes to actual policy being implemented,
Yes.
we learned the other morning that the person that he's listening to the most when it comes to Julian Assange is Richard Grenell, and that guy is a literal bag of human shit. Like this is the guy who back channeled between Ecuador and the CIA. This is the guy who, as Trump's ambassador to Germany, did so much of the behind the scenes work in the stripping of Ecuadorian citizenship for Julian Assange, which also happened illegally with zero due process. And this is Trump's, go-to guy when it comes to Julian. So earlier at the top of the vigil, I was spitballing some ideas and trying to figure out what we could do, but I think maybe going at Trump online with, Richard Grenell's mistakes are going to be your legacy. Richard Grenell's commitment to violating the Constitution and international law is going to be your legacy, because nobody's going to remember who the fuck Richard Grenell was, but they'll remember who you are, Donnie.
Yeah, you have to go after his ego, y'all. Go at his ego. Go after his legacy, his ego, his sense of petty, his need for revenge. All of those ugly things. That's what you go after with Donald Trump. You can't go at him with "do the right thing," Donald Trump, because that's not at all going to be appealing to that man. You have to.
Yeah, there are no better angels.
No, you have to go at him. And over Christmas, I had somebody make me those Grinch things, how Trump destroyed the First Amendment, but it was, Trump as the Grinch. Make him think he's going to be known as the president that destroyed the First Amendment. This is going to be his legacy. Appeal to his sense of petty. If you really want to piss off Obama, you would pardon Assange. If you really want to make
who released Barabbas.
Right? He did.
The Blackwater Barabbas.
3 of them.
Yeah. Oh, it's a long shot.
Yeah. Let's make it biblical.
Let's do that.
It's a long shot that Trump will actually pardon Julian Assange or drop the charges or whatever. That's a long shot, but it's a shot, and I feel like we have to take it. So if you're going to go at him, if you want to use the tweet storms on Friday to at Donald Trump or at the people in his circle, his inner circle who may have his ear, Cassandra Fairbanks tweeted out this awesome resource. It's a website that comes up, and every time you go onto the website, it randomizes, but it's I think it's the top 10,000 people that Trump interacts with or whatever on Twitter. And so randomly you'll get like 50 different ones every time you go on the website, and it has their Twitter, and you can just click on it and say tweet at, and then it pops up with a little tweet. You write whatever you want to write and you hit send, and you can tweet at the people who he interacts with on Twitter and try to catch their eye. I mean, it's a super cool, like it's really easy to do. So, I mean, but yeah. And if you're going, also, if you're a leftist and you're going to tweet at those people, think like them. Use buzzwords like patriot, freedom, you know, civil liberties, all of that stuff. It catches their eye better. And be nice. Like, even if you don't agree with them, be nice, because they could help us catch Donald Trump's eye. They could help catch somebody else in his circle's eye. So don't be a douche. Let's, you know, keep the eye on the prize, you know?
Yeah, I think help them see the logic of it. If not, well, the injustice of not doing it. But I mean, that other people may understand that. But Donald Trump has spoken about pardoning Edward Snowden. He can't just leave that story, you know, hanging when he, you know, if he stays or if he goes.
Well,
he can't leave that one in the air, can he?
The third superseding indictment, I believe, that came out against Julian actually opens the door for prosecuting Sarah Harrison for her involvement in getting Edward Snowden out of Hong Kong. So what I've always kind of said from the beginning of this, and it's what we saw in 2016, is this may just be a play to illusionize those people that want to see Julian free and Edward free. Because not that social media is a bad idea, because we definitely need pressure there. But they can't censor you the same way in the street. When you put a sign up or drop a banner, it's not based on the people who might want to see that content. When you put a sign on a telephone pole or a banner on a bridge, it is the people there in that physical location that drive down that highway or drive past that supermarket that see these things. And the coronavirus just so happens to have centralized most human interaction. So there's these big box stores. Go there, every freaking telephone pole, put up a free Julian Assange sign, no more torture, and the rendition. Because the only way to censor us in the street is with violence and is with people. They can't use these AI scripts to just rewrite who can see what on the internet. It takes a human being removing those posters and physically beating you to the ground to stop you from putting them up there.
That happened with David Hicks here, who was, you know, sold for a bounty in Afghanistan and shipped off to Gitmo for 5 years. They didn't give him a toothbrush. He finally got compensated for his bad teeth. But when we realized, George Christensen speaks about this in the interview, when we realized this was really the precipice for him, he was going into that black hole for the rest of his days, then that's what happened in Australia. There was posters everywhere, on every highway, every street, free David Hicks. And, you know, he wasn't, yeah, well, he wasn't, maybe he wasn't as much as a threat of to, you know, the CIA as revealing, you know, someone who reveals the truth about what they're doing and what governments are doing in terms of war crimes. But, you know, for God's sake, you know, there's the other problem that Stephen Aftergood and Daniel Ellsberg have highlighted about overclassification. And the Stephen Aftergood study revealed that 99.5% of what is classified no longer needs to be classified. Only 0.5%. For God's sake, can we get that house in order so that it's not a crime to reveal a lot of these things? Because, you know, it's our historical record that doesn't matter anymore, you know. But a lot that, you know, actually the problem is that so much of it is hiding crime, embarrassment, protecting people's jobs. And that's why, you know, things just get rubber stamped, you know. So it's a kind of a booby trap for journalists, you know. It's awful. So, but I think we've got over it in Australia. We've so, as George pointed out, this is a legal precedent. We're not going to do that. We're not going to go down that way of the Espionage Act. And anyway, you know, our national broadcaster saved the day, because pushed on, and then a cover-up was totally impossible. right? That's what Peter Cronau of Four Corners said when he came on our show. It was too late. The cat was not only out of the bag, but war crime was shown in people's living rooms all around the country. And these people had never seen anything like that before. How can you then, keep that quiet? That's what so much of privacy, not privacy, but secrecy and classification at various levels is about: keeping things quiet, forgetting them. And that's not a sensible way to go through the 21st century.
Well, no, it's the only thing it assures is that there's going to be corruption, and that the corrupt are going to be rewarded because they're going to exploit that system.
Yeah, there is in some countries and even in, I think there's a lot of cowards in media that will just follow the dominant force. But at least we've had a good result in Australia that is impactful for Julian, because there's as Christine Assange pointed out, there's a difference now in stance between Australia and the UK, and certainly with the US, about going after journalists just to shut their mouths. That's wrong.
Yeah, it is. And it's, I would say that it's kind of been, do you think that the David McBride case has helped with that at all?
His information has, yes, absolutely, because he gave the information to Dan Oakes, but we don't have a single change in the law regarding whistleblowers. And Julian Burnside QC, I interviewed him like 10 years ago about the WikiLeaks collateral murder, and of course he pointed out the case of the Pentagon Papers, right? That was the precedent that it may be a crime to leak information because of a NDA, non-disclosure agreement, or an oath, but it is not a crime as yet, really, until that precedent is set. Maybe starting, well on the way on January 4th, where it is not a crime to publish, even if the information was obtained illegally. So, Switzerland were really keen on helping Julian Assange, and they thought that he was a whistleblower. And so, this local council suddenly changed their agenda and took it, to the federal parliament in order to try and save whistleblowers. And as far as I know, that's the first country really that's really trying to, where there's been some concrete action to try and get people out of their non-disclosure agreements or oaths if they have, tried, if something is in the public interest and they've tried all the official channels and it's just, like Catherine Gunn, the crime of necessity defense, to prevent a greater crime from happening. And they knew she had that defense and it was very strong, and they dropped the case. That's the kind of law we need to assert. That law needs to support the media and vice versa. And
yet, right now in this moment, Julian Assange is in the high security prison in a country that isn't his country, getting ready to go to another country that isn't his country, because nobody in charge of any of those countries has the testicular fortitude to say, okay, that thing that we just did in Australia, that needs to apply to Australian citizens no matter where they are. That's not happening. At least not right now. That's not happening. And we can't let it happen retroactively. Like, we can't let this be done posthumously to Julian Assange. That's not acceptable.
I'm telling you, I have all of those people out there who think that they're going to be able to not say a word throughout this whole time, and then you think that after they successfully murder Julian Assange, I'm going to let you come out there and pretend like you always supported him. I will become your worst nightmare. Because I that's going to happen. That's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of people who pretend like they always supported Julian Assange.
I'm really stoked that I'm missing out on the wrath of Misty Winston.
Well,
'Cause
we're
I'm already on your team with this one.
we have Sarah Palin
Sarah
being
Palin.
better on the position, and Rudy
Oh.
Giuliani than Miss I'm gonna save the world Ocasio-Cortez, where when in an
Bernie
interview,
Sanders, who pretends to be like the progressive revolution, like he's the guy, like fight for somebody you don't know, and are you kidding me? I can't even get them to say his name. I mean, finally, Jeremy Scahill got AOC to give a ridiculous answer on Julian Assange. And I'll give him credit, though. He pushed her a little bit. Like, he came back at her after she gave a shit response. He kind of pushed her a little bit, and she gave a, shit response, and then he just kind of let it go. But at least he finally asked her. At least somebody asked one of them. Jesus Christ, like, it's ridiculous. This is independent media. You can't even get independent media to ask these politicians this, or to pressure them, or to cover it, or whatever. And Sarah Palin comes out, and it's like living in a bizarro world where it's free speech and the First Amendment used to be a very leftist issue. Like, it was ingrained in that kind of counterculture, anti-establishment. Like, that's always been a leftist thing, and it's like living in opposite world where now I'm having better luck with the Sarah Palins of the world. Like, what? I can't. Oh, it's ridiculous. It's so frustrating. It is frustrating.
Sarah Palin.
Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin.
More in tune with reality than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, or the entire left put together.
It reminds me of when
it's not really the left, friends and neighbors.
No.
It's not.
Ocasio's answer reminds me of when Lady Gaga got mad at Weird Al because he copied one of her songs. And Sarah Palin now standing up for Julian's like, no, my emails got released. But AOC's the one that has a fucking problem with him.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane to me.
It's just, seriously, I know I've said this before, but if you would have told me like 5 years ago that I would have Sarah Palin speaking out in defense of Julian Assange, and at the same time I wouldn't be able to get Bernie Sanders or any other progressive politician, elected official, candidate. I mean, there's been some candidates. That's not fair. But I would have laughed my ass. I mean, I guess maybe I would have laughed, and then I would have been like, okay, maybe I could see that happening. But my first reaction would be to laugh my ass off. Sarah Palin, I never saw that coming. But that's where we're at. Like, I'm having better luck on that side of things. And it's a weird thing to experience. And I don't know what's happening, because it's not like we don't have historical reference for where this goes. This always hits the left. They're not going to go after the right because the establishment is right. Like, they're fine with that movement. They're fine with that. The left is always going to be the one that faces this issue because that's the direction they don't want to go. And to ignore that and to pretend like it's not a thing that exists is just completely self-defeating. And then to not only pretend it doesn't exist, but cheer them on as they're censoring you is so fucking dumb. It makes my head hurt.
But you don't get elected in this country as a quote-unquote progressive without pretending the national security state doesn't exist. Like, it's conditional to you getting elected.
Yeah,
it's never really once, ever saying anything untoward about the national security state. And when someone brings up the Patriot Act, you go, oh yeah, that was a long time ago, and it was a lot of overreach. And then you just hope to duck the question and hope that whoever's interviewing you is doing it for access and not for journalism, because the follow-up to that is, but it gets reauthorized every 90 days, and the last 8 times your name was attached to it.
Yeah. No, but they don't ever get asked those questions. That was my point a couple of rambles ago, I think.
Yeah. No, I made Roger Stone run away. Put me in front of AOC.
Right? That would never happen. Her people would never let that happen. That's the thing, is that they're protected. They don't have to answer tough questions. They don't have to, endure the exposure of being, put on the spot. And I don't know how we fix that when even independent media goes along with that game. It's, I mean, when you have progressive pundits giving disgusting softball interviews to Madeleine Albright, I mean, that's not something that is really going to bode
A
well for the
million
future.
dead Iraqi children was worth it. That's
And
Madeleine
I'm
Albright.
so honored to be sitting with you and interviewing you. Fuck off. Your first thing should have been, so do you still feel like murdering, slaughtering 500,000 children was worth it? How's that feel now, bitch? You know, like, oh, it's that. I mean, it doesn't give me a lot of hope for the future of media in this country, because you know, that's what passes as progressive and left. You know, it's unbelievably bizarre. It really is. And it, you know, to not be able to speak about, and even if you're not even if you don't support WikiLeaks for whatever dumb reason, if you're in the news is your business, like that's what you do, and you're not covering a historic court case on press freedom, there's probably something wrong with you. This is news. Like, this is news. I don't know how you could justify not covering something this massive and historic. I mean, that's not hyperbole. This is historic. This sets a precedent going forward. Anybody who is pretending to know about what's going on in the world and pretending to inform an audience about current events should be covering this. I mean, I can't think of many other stories that are, you know, much bigger. I mean, obviously, some of the coronavirus stuff and whatever is, I mean, but come on.
Well, we never know the facts about, you know, a lot of things, you know, even going into the future, you know, say about climate change or other nuclear, other existential threats, unless we, you know, we free speech, unless we settle this case in a way that is not going to kill the First Amendment moving forward. Folks, I really have to go. I've got a thing to do now. It's been lovely talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Could you give some final thoughts and let people know, if they don't already, where they can find you and your work?
Oh, Consortium News. Just go to consortiumnews.com. So that's you will see lots of great articles from writers around the world. And also, you can go to a tab called CN Live, or you can go to our YouTube channel on Consortium News YouTube channel. And we are on two platforms now for the last year and a half at least. So we put things, you know, in print and on screen. So, you know, depending on your sensibility, some people like to watch and listen, and others like to read, and others like to do both, like myself. But yeah, a lot of our stuff is complementary. But Consortium News has been going for 25 years now. We celebrated our 25th anniversary, and it was started by the investigative journalist. It was as a consortium. And this is such an old story, Steve, because, you know, for journalists who were mainstream journalists who were getting their stories censored, spiked.
Yeah.
And they just thought, well, we'll all just congregate here. And it was the you know, that was the time where you couldn't stop him. It was the world's first online news site, Consortium News, predating the New York Times, LA Times online and all that. But there were very many years of freedom. Very many years of freedom, as Julian points out in, you know, his early stories of the internet, and lots of other people do as well. You know, there's always been a backlash. You know, it's been a real to and fro, the history of the internet. The forces that want to share and the forces that want to, you know, sell or crush or control or whatever. But it, you know, the internet has had a history of getting around these things. And, you know, as we form this collective hive mind of the, for want of a better word, in the 21st century, I think that we are, I see in the long term that we are probably going to say, well, you know, there's no point in sectioning off large chunks of information. People have the right to know stuff that affects their lives. But there may be some secrets in there. And I think that, you know, everybody agrees with that. Ellsberg agrees with that. There are some secrets that have to be kept for a certain amount of time for the public good as well. But we'll work it out. But it might take 100 years. I don't know. We'll see what happens next week.
Right. Well, and we'll probably be checking in with you next week too. We'll be in DC. We'll be doing our early morning coverage like we did during September. Make sure you get a link in case you want to pop in case Joe wants to backseat drive your conversation.
Well, we're in the courtroom.
Oh, you're in?
Yeah, we're in. Yeah,
Oh,
Joe and
nice.
I will be attending.
Nice.
Julian, I should have said that first. Julian and I will be attending.
You're dropping the ball here, Cathy.
Yeah,
What?
you definitely should have led with that,
Right.
sister. You should have led with
I
that.
think she did. To be fair, I think she did, but it was
Oh.
amidst a larger question. So I
Yeah,
think
that's
she
right.
did mention it.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
I'm
anyway,
super excited to
to
see the articles that come out from both of you guys being in the courtroom because Craig Murray does a wonderful job, and and your guys' in-person interpretation will be great.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, there will be live tweets, and then as soon as pretty well soon after, it might take a couple of minutes, but right after we'll be going live to air with attendees of the hearing and other guests. So there's a few that are confirmed already. The 3
Excellent.
people at least who will have been in the hearing we'll have on a live panel, and our legal advisor, Alexander Mercouris, who worked for 12 years at the Royal Courts of Justice. And he's a very, very knowledgeable man. So he always
Very
gives
cool.
great interpretation from the legal perspective. All right, I really have to go. My dog
Okay.
is
Thank you so
needing
much.
a walk.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cathy.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
So are we
Cool that
doing
they're
it?
going to be in the courtroom. That's awesome.
It is. I'm super excited because we've had almost, I don't even want to say half. We've had some people on that had courtroom access, and
Yeah, but I think that's
people that
the first person I've heard confirmed for in the courtroom.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's good. Good stuff. I was worried there for a while because Kevin and were having trouble, I think, at first. Remember,
Yeah.
that was a couple weeks ago. That was nuts. I was like, are they really going to do this? Are they really going to do this?
Well,
they
and
got it
then
worked
they tried to shine Mary Costakitas too.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But I'm glad they got that worked out because I really thought, oh my God, they're actually going to keep everybody out of the video link. Anybody who matters, all of the key players, they're really going to do this. I really thought that they were going to find a way to keep all of those reporters from having access to the video link. I was like, oh my God, they can't. They're really going to do this. But
yeah,
no,
but you can't
no,
stop Juan Passarelli.
no, that's true. I wouldn't want to fuck with Juan
The
Passarelli.
entire Crown prosecutorial system can't stop Juan Passarelli.
Right.
So, as long as Juan's out there, we'd be all right.
Yeah, true story.
Big
I
shout
can't
out
wait.
to Big Juan.
And he just released
I
a new
love it.
documentary as well. I don't think it's in. I didn't get a chance to be at that event, the release thing, but that did.
I didn't either.
But I'm excited about that because that apparently is really deep into the whole UC Global situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait for that. And I can't wait to talk to him about it.
He sent me a copy. I have it somewhere.
Did he?
I'll
Can
go
you
get it.
ask him if we can play it and do live commentary? It might be something cool to do with Burmis, like a watch show. Either way.
We'll set it up. I'll try and set it up with Juan. But yeah.
That would be dope.
That would be dope too.
Yeah.
Nope. Do we want to do the other part of the stuff that we have on?
We can, yeah. I don't know if I'm going to be able to bring up my stuff because my computer's being stupid. Let me see. So you guys may have to do it. What do you guys want to start with?
We can start with that first shadowproof article.
The first shadowproof article. Is that
The first one in the medical stuff section.
okay. Give me just a second to.
My computer's being a piece of shit, as always.
Yeah, so just for everybody, I guess we should preface this because it is heavy. We are going to be talking about we're going to make it abbreviated and go through well-written articles for it, but we are going to be going over some of the medical stuff that we had discussed earlier with Cathy, but that was brought up in court and discussed in court during those days. we're reading articles from people like Kevin Gostola, Mohammed Almazi, that were very respectful of Julian's privacy throughout all of this. And it's something we didn't want to do per se, but we feel like we need to just because it is such an important thing to talk about. But I
Real
think
talk, we've actually been avoiding this for weeks.
2 months. Yeah.
Yeah, we have been like planning. This has been on the agenda for a long time, and we just keep finding excuses, or we managed to allow guests to go on longer than they should, so that it takes up the whole show. Like we've all been doing everything we can to avoid talking about this.
I'm going to get up and go find a sweatshirt during this.
Right on. Your
Straight
fuzzy
up.
pants ain't doing it.
The pants are fine. It's just
Right.
This is a rather thin shirt.
Nipply.
Uh,
Right on. I hear
Nothing
you.
for
it is
DC,
not
buddy.
warm
It's DC
here, man.
prep.
It is not. Huh?
It's DC prep.
I'm
Yeah.
cold weather training for DC. I should just tough it out. I should.
Hey, somebody drop the link to that article in the chat so I can try to pull it up that way, because I can't
Yeah,
get my.
Okay. Give me I got you.
I got it first. Let's see.
It's a race.
Got it.
It's a race. Who's gonna win? Who's gonna win?
Oh, well, Andre put it in Element, but I'm going to put it in Jitsi.
Oh no, I need it. Yeah, I need it
Oh.
in Jitsi chat. Oh,
Yeah.
Steve's gonna get you.
So we both won.
that. Steve wins. I guess I should have made the rules clear. Okay, that worked. Cool.
Do you have
Okay, now-
I think you have this stuff loaded up, right, Josh? Or do we need to screen share?
Sleepy?
Sleepy.
Sleepy. Dead air, sleepy. Sleepy.
Sleepy Josh. I'll just screen share.
I was about to.
Yeah, screen share it. It's cool.
I'll let Steve do it. I won't race this time.
Who's gonna read? Steve, you gonna go get a sweatshirt? I can read if you want.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay. Who's screen sharing it? Did he screen share it?
Oh, well,
Yeah,
I'm
that's all
screen sharing it, but I'm seriously like 2 seconds out.
Okay, cool. All right. So,
like, read the first 2 paragraphs and talk
Gotcha.
amongst yourselves for about 10 seconds.
gotcha, dude. All right. Dr. Sandra Crosby, who visited WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange at the Belmarsh prison and in the Ecuador embassy in London, testified during his extradition trial. She is one of the only witnesses to provide statements to the court based on her observations of his mental condition while he was in the embassy. An American doctor, who Crosby did not name, organized an academic evaluation of the effects of living in the embassy, and in October 2017, she visited Assange for the first time. Crosby also visited Assange twice in Belmarsh in October 2019 and January 2020. Based upon his mental and physical health, Crosby said Assange is at high risk of completing suicide if he were to be extradited to the United States. She said Assange suffers from osteoporosis. He would face severe risks to his physical health in addition to his mental health if detained or incarcerated in a U.S. facility, given the abysmal state of healthcare in jails and prisons. According to Crosby, Assange has concealed the full extent of his depression and suicide plans when meeting with prison doctors and mental health specialists. He was worried if he revealed his plans or the extent of his suicidal ideations that he may be put under more surveillance or face further isolation. The U.S. Justice Department charged Assange with 17 counts of violating the Espionage Act and 1 count of conspiracy to commit a computer crime that, as alleged in the indictment, is written like an Espionage Act offense. The charges criminalize the act of merely receiving classified information, as well as the publication of state secrets from the U.S. government. It targets common practices in news gathering, which is why the case is widely opposed by press freedom organizations throughout the world. Crosby has a clinical practice that focuses on care of asylum seekers and refugees, most of whom have experienced torture. She has even given presentations in the U.S. and various countries on caring for survivors of torture. As of March 2019, she evaluated nearly 1,000 survivors of torture. Are you back, Steve?
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
I mean,
good.
it hasn't been magically scrolling.
Right.
Right.
You know.
Well, I can pick it up too if you need me to.
Yeah, go ahead. Jump in. man.
When
Sure
I
people don't want
initially
to hear me.
When I initially saw Assange in the embassy in October 2017, he certainly described to me symptoms of depression, symptoms of post-traumatic disorder, according to Crosby. But he was capable of conversation and not in a, quote, horrible state, unquote, though he had physical symptoms that were worrisome. This is October 2017, pre-Belmarsh. She observed his mental state was declining. Assange described symptoms of depression, sleep disturbance, inability to concentrate, and nightmares. It reflected a lot of psychological distress. Assange first described his thoughts of suicide to Crosby in 2018. In fact, he spent quite a lot of time talking to me about how he'd been thinking about all of this deliberately. He watched Slobodan Praljak? Anyone? No one? Suicide in the United Nations War Crimes Tribunal. In February 2019, Assange markedly deteriorated physically and psychologically. I was very concerned about a very advanced tooth infection that was causing him excruciating pain, requiring him to take narcotics, Crosby recalled. She wanted him to leave the embassy for dental care, but he was unwilling. Let's actually talk about that for a moment and come back to this.
Yeah, because that's bullshit. Unwilling. No, completely unable. You know?
Why might he be unwilling?
Because, he didn't want to face the shit he's facing right this very second.
Because the city of London spent millions of dollars over a decade to sit outside of a building and install cameras illegally all across that part of town.
Yeah, undercover, sitting in like cars on the street. Like, I mean, the most surveilled location on planet Earth, I think. I'm not even kidding. It's crazy how much
grand jury investigating the reporter of war crimes and not the war criminals.
Right. Oh, Tony Blair right now is like, trying to make a comeback. Like he wants to get involved in politics again. What the fuck, dude?
At least Tony Blair is like seeing it through, though. Like he's leading that vaccine charge.
Dude, that guy is like the UK's version of Skeletor.
Yeah, well, yeah, the Crypt Keeper. Remember that guy? He reminds me a little bit of that. Like he does not look good. Evil ages you, fam. Don't be evil. It'll age you. Look at those people. Look at like Nancy Pelosi, and they all look terrible.
Nancy Pelosi is 35 years old.
That's when she was actually embraced by her vampire sire. That's why her skin is so unaged.
Not a day over 35. Yeah. Not a day over 35. And take a look at her. She looks like the fucking Crypt Keeper.
The secret is all the ice cream, actually.
Yes. It has to be the expensive kind.
Right. Rendered with the tears of homeless children.
And the blood of Greek virgins.
And Afghani children. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I can't forget that. Yeah.
Are we going back to this thing?
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
All right. Pull it back up. That's not shadowproof.
See, we're even avoiding it now.
As detailed in her December 2019 report provided to the court, Assange seemed severely depressed to her. He talked like he was essentially dead. He was tearful and pleaded for help. He spoke about calling an anonymous suicide hotline known as the Samaritans. By October 2019, he met all the criteria for major depression. Crosby testified it was profoundly impacting his functioning, and he had thoughts of suicide every day, many times in a day. Crosby assessed his physical health and was concerned about what she viewed as symptoms of cardiac disease or anxiety, as well as chronic respiratory infections. Early in the COVID-19 pandemic, Assange's defense team raised the issue of chronic respiratory infections in an attempt to bail him out of jail. The judge rejected that request. Yeah. And every other subsequent request, no matter how legitimate or rational. The prosecution had limited questions for Crosby because the defense did not have her take the stand as an expert witness. But once again, lead prosecutor James Megabrain Lewis Megabrain shared how.
Where's Lauria in the chat?
Yeah. Megabrain shared how disgusted he was with UN Special Rapporteur on Torture Nils Melzer's report on the psychological torture Assange had endured in the embassy. You rely in your report to the court on Nils Melzer. I think you got him involved, Lewis said. Because why? Okay, wait, hold on, because I'm about to say a lot of unkind things about Mega Brain and this whole moment here. But I'm going to go ahead and get through it. Crosby told Lewis after her February 2019 visit, she was very alarmed by Assange's risk of systemic infection and death. She was afraid he may overdose from narcotics while trying to deal with a dental infection. It is unclear why Assange's legal team chose not to have Crosby describe an incident that occurred with embassy surveillance staff when she visited in 2019, but it is potentially relevant to evidence on the U.S. intelligence-backed espionage operation that was conducted against Assange. Crosby left the embassy at one point to pick up some food and return to the room where she was meeting with Assange to find her confidential medical notes taken. Her notes were in a space utilized by embassy surveillance staff, and she presumed they were read, a violation of doctor-patient confidentiality. I was questioned by the security staff and was forced to write a statement as to who I was and the purpose of my visit, which had already been established, Crosby wrote in a March 2019 affidavit. I was asked for a copy of my medical license, which was taken and photocopied. My passport and phone had been taken earlier. The embassy security guard then told me he had to make a call before I would be allowed back in the embassy to complete my evaluation. Crosby added, I was not informed who he was calling or why. The experience was intimidating. Lewis wrapped up his questions for Crosby by rhetorically asking, are you aware that no one ever extradited to the U.S. from the U.K. has committed suicide? It came after testimony from Dr. Nigel Blackwood, a little fucking turkey neck, little son of a bitch, who the prosecution commissioned to conduct a psychiatric assessment of Assange that was done by phone in July 2020. Blackwood consistently downplayed the impacts of solitary confinement on individuals with depression, whether they were incarcerated in a British or American prison. And Blackwood promoted the inaccurate assertions by the Assistant U.S. Attorney Gordon Kronberg that the Alexandria Detention Center, where Assange would be held in pretrial confinement, has no solitary confinement. We, in fact, know that ADC does have solitary confinement, and we know that as a pretrial detainee, he would be subject to special administrative measures. This is James Lewis. I'm gonna say like peak humanity for the guy, because he like you when you hear the people who are inside the courtroom talk about him, you know, they're like, oh no, he's just like really famous, really well respected, you know, incredibly kind and generous with blood, just super polite and like an English lord kind of thing about it. And that's because civility masks the malice. I don't know why that has to be explained to people.
They're
like,
psychopaths.
Standing there in the court, hurling accusations against Julian Assange that, oh, he just made this shit up for attention and he's just trying to get out of the trouble he got himself into. Boy who cried wolf. To dismiss the fact that, okay, Julian's legal team did appeal to the office of the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture over and over and over and over and over. Doesn't matter whose name is on the door for that. You're appealing to the office to look into your client who's being tortured. I can't believe Mega Brain asked that question, because I would have loved to have been like, yeah, he's being tortured. by multiple governments. So we called the guy who's an expert on torture because of the torture. You see, the torture is what, Your Honor, am I making myself clear? Torture. That's why we reached out, the torture. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. And the level of just pure vileness to dismiss and minimize and mock the psychological and physical and mental symptoms of a torture victim. I mean, this isn't me saying this.
Terminology, by the way.
Right.
Sorry,
that's what I'm saying. It's not me saying this. The UN Special Rapporteur on Torture said that. The UN has ruled that. Like, this is not me making it up and being dramatic. He's a torture victim. And for, the mega brain piece of shit cocaine and hookers dude jumps up in court and starts talking about how it's not that big of a deal and he needs to get over it and he's just faking it for attention and trying to avoid consequence. And that's pretty gross. Like, lawyers are gross, but that's pretty gross. I mean, that takes a special level of evil. I mean, these are psychopaths. Like, that's not, they really are. And that's why they're so disarming. Psychopaths are disarming. They fit in. Like, they pass as normal, upstanding, respectable people. I mean, that's just how it works. They're really good at that. I mean, that's what a psychopath is. So, I mean, all these people, giving quotes about how he's this very nice guy and a hard worker and he's polite and he's blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you got duped by a psychopath. Congratulations. It's just really gross what that whole hearing was just despicable, man. Especially those 3 days of medical testimony.
Yeah.
What?
Do we want to try to get through the Sputnik one? Mo's article about, because we got to wrap
it in
up
the chat, somebody.
Yeah. Because we had a couple other articles queued up, but these two are the big ones. This one, and we'll dive into it, is literally, I believe, where Lewis gets laughed at live in court.
That's my favorite.
Where the mega brain literally insults his own expert witness in a different case.
It's my favorite thing. Seriously. Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Like
so good.
Yeah. Do you want me to? I can screen share this one if you guys want.
Okay, go for it.
Do you have it, Misty?
Yeah, I have it up.
Oh, okay.
Right. Need me to screen share it?
Nah, Misty's internet's too slow. Someone else screen share it.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to get the specific. You got it?
My shit is useless.
Yeah. Okay.
There's the thing. And the other thing. And this thing. All right, let's just do that.
You'll probably have to zoom in a little bit if you haven't already.
All right, who wants to jump in?
I can start if you want, if you can deal with my dyslexia. The court overseeing the WikiLeaks publisher's extradition hearing was told by a consultant psychiatrist with expertise in autism that the risk of Mr. Assange committing suicide is very high if he is extradited. Julian Assange was found to be an intelligent person, characterized of many high-functioning people on the autism spectrum by Dr. Quentin Deely, the Old Bailey heard on Wednesday, 23rd September 2020. Dr. Deely, who is a consultant psychiatrist specializing in autism, ADHD, learning disabilities, as well as various mental conditions, testified through the morning as to the diagnosis of autism, Asperger's, which he had found after the assessment was made. Mr. Assange shows a deep focus on word of systems. Intricacies of systems. I hate my brain. Which is common for many on the spectrum, although he did show a difficulty in identifying and describing his own emotions, and a tendency not to describe emotions in others, according to Mr. Deely. Do we still have a Steve?
Oh, sorry, I'm trying to.
No, you're good.
Do like 3 things at once right now. I apologize. Where'd the freaking thing go? There it is.
Assange shows a deep focus. Oh, I already read that one. Mr. Deely did not concede that whilst it is true that perhaps the majority of on the autism spectrum do not form relationships, or at least successfully, there are a minority who do, though often in practice they struggle to understand the nuanced aspects of relationships. Edward Fitzgerald, QC, for the defense, asked the doctor about Assange's suicide risk should he be extradited to the United States. Mr. Deely responded that in his view, his risk of suicide would be high under those circumstances, especially given the nature of Assange's autistic disorder.
Sorry, getting there. Too much going
So
on.
just so you guys know, the risk of suicide is already higher in the autistic community. So add to that 10 years of torture, a couple years of solitary confinement, and then being extradited and thrown into a supermax in Colorado. That's not good. That's not good. It's not good.
The ability to tolerate stress is reduced in people with on the autistic spectrum. And the rates of suicide are higher among people in the autistic spectrum compared to the members of the general public, the doctor explained. The prosecution challenges the idea that Mr. Assange is on the autistic spectrum. James Lewis, QC, challenged Deely on his diagnosis of Mr. Assange. 2 separate clips of the award-winning publisher answering questions of the Frontline Club were presented to the doctor as examples that Mr. Assange has the ability to engage in conversational interchange, notwithstanding his diagnosis.
So,
Just
real quick.
Yeah, we need to talk about that because that's bullshit.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut away from this for a moment. We'll come.
This is about to
back
get me fired up. Actually, I'm sorry. It's about to piss me off. Yeah,
go right ahead, Misty.
It's bullshit. I have a kid who's on the autism spectrum, and just because they can hold a conversation or answer questions doesn't mean that they don't have a fucking diagnosis. Are you kidding me? Have you ever heard of Temple Grandin? She gives speeches all the time, all across the globe. I mean, there are autistic people who are public speakers. They can go and they can give speeches, they can answer questions, and they're fine. So this bullshit that this bullshit that, somehow somebody who has autism, if they can answer questions, then they don't actually have autism. You're an ignorant piece of shit, period. That's ridiculous.
They're answering the questions because it's areas that they are like hyper focused.
Yes, focus on, that they love. That's their thing.
That can discourse for hours on it.
Yes, my kid's thing is animals. She will talk to you about animals all day long. She knows everything that there is to know. I all the time have to look shit up to see if she's right or not, because I'm like, is she right or is she not? And she regularly schools me. My 12-year-old regularly schools me on animals. So, but if you have a conversation with her about something else, it's not that easy. Like, it's a little bit more difficult. But to say that somebody who answers questions isn't autistic is so beyond offensive. I don't get really offended by much, but because this is like so close to home, this pisses me off. Like the dismissal of, high functioning, I hate that too, high functioning, that whole crap that they put in there about high functioning, that's completely ridiculous. Those people are all the time overlooked and minimized, and it's just absurd. It is absurd. You don't have to be like the stereotypical movie version of an autistic person to count. You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous.
Well, it's not just that too. It's we don't know if Megabrain actually believes this, or if he's doing it purely to prey on any latent prejudices the judge may have, or to simply muddy the water by throwing in Victorian era talking points about mental health. We don't know. We don't like you assume that you don't get to be a crown prosecutor by being a moron, but we don't know. I know a lot of dumb lawyers. I know a lot of dumb lawyers. I know more dumb lawyers than I know smart lawyers. Again, all you need are stimulants and rote memory, and you too can be a lawyer. That's it. That's all you need to pass the bar. What kind of lawyer you are after that is entirely up to you. But basically, if you have enough stimulants and some basic rote memory skills, you can pass the bar. At least in the U.S., you know. And I'm just, some places are more challenging than others. I always get lawyers who are like, "You have no idea where to buy the fuck you, fuck you." I know how much cocaine you did to get.
And Adderall and cocaine, man. Fucking lawyers.
Fuck you. So I don't know if it's like that in the UK or not, though. I assume that it would, you know, kind of have to be.
If you remember
our entire justice system after theirs.
Yeah, if you remember day 4, Thursday of the first week of the second round of Julian's hearings, like, QC Lewis woke up in the wrong fucking house. He forgot everything in court, which kind of signifies that he was planning on going back to the courtroom, right? Woke up in the wrong house, called in, his phone was dying, his laptop was dying, and then they cancel court for that day and the following.
Damn hooker
And then
wood.
the prosecution has the balls to say these witnesses are taking a long time. Like, you guys are really holding court up with, you know, all these fucking witnesses. Like, fuck all of them. Like, it's insanity.
Yeah.
The only possible, but like it pisses me off so much because you're using the most fucking bottom feeding level discourse in a courtroom just to discredit a witness that anyone who's taken 10 seconds to look into this case knows is being stitched up by the US government. So, yeah, you work for the British Crown. You're working on behalf of the US government. Like, how do you get up every day and be like, all right, I'm gonna fucking slander someone with Asperger's this morning? Game face, you know?
You
Like,
wake up with a pounding headache and a deep sense of self-loathing. That's how you wake up in the morning.
Yes.
You're one of those fucking monsters.
Yeah. I don't know, though. I don't think they have the self-awareness for self-loathing, to be honest with you.
Well, it comes out in the cocaine. That's
manifest in the hookers and blow.
That expression of self-hatred is the total destruction.
Laptop bits, not waking up in the right house.
Right.
Yeah.
Forcing a woman to lie about her husband being sick when he fucking wasn't.
My husband may or may not have symptoms that may or may not resemble those of coronavirus. We got to call off court for the rest of the week. Later. Sorry, gotta go.
Right after the day before, we were laughed out of court because a witness literally said, "I'm glad you asked that question" to the U.S. prosecution for a second time in the first week.
That's like my favorite. Like, seriously, those were my favorite. When a witness says, "I'm so glad you asked that question," you're in trouble. You are in trouble. Like, if you're a prosecutor and a witness says that to you, you should maybe like ask for a recess and go maybe like pull a Jim Carrey and go beat the shit out of yourself in the bathroom to try to get out of court or something, because that's embarrassing. That's not good. That's definitely not good. That was good too. When he got laughed at, I think getting laughed at was definitely my favorite though. That was fun. That was good for me.
Do we want to finish the article because we got about halfway through, or do we want to wrap up?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's just basically what we just said. Like the next couple paragraphs is just talking about what we just said. My little rant about
Yeah, and they go as far, I don't know if you talk about it because I had to go to the bathroom, but the prosecution and the article gets into it, goes as far as to say, like, how can Julian have a family if he's autistic? Like, how can that even be possible? Like, how can he have kids? How can he have a fucking fiance? Like, what do you mean? And that was, to me, like...
Yeah, I do think it's important, like, here, this is not, like, me saying this based on just, my experience, but this is from the doctor. I think that is a very important example of what I was talking about. A highly rehearsed role, talking about a question in which he has expertise in a highly structured context within an impressive monologue. There isn't a quality to having to respond to an informal social interaction in which he is required to notice and respond to the emotional cues of his interlocutor. He is in his comfort zone. And that's exactly what it is. If it's a conversation, and this, I want to be clear, autism is a spectrum. It affects everybody differently. So this is kind of a blanket statement, but it is a very pretty reliable kind of thing you see kind of across the board. There's a comfort zone, and if you're in the comfort zone, then it's okay. But if you, that kind of spontaneous social interaction, that's where they get tripped up. So, pretending like him giving a prepared speech and answering questions about something that he loves and is passionate about and, knows inside and out, that's like, it's completely ridiculous. It's an unfair thing to even, say out loud. But he's a prosecutor. Prosecutors are all just scumbags. This one in particular. So yeah, I mean, that's like the big thing. That's if you go down even further, they talk about the whole good eye contact thing and smiling inappropriately. Like the eye contact thing is another complete myth. Like it's a big, that's not fair. It's not a myth. It is like a pretty reliable kind of cue, or like one of the first things you may notice. But like, for example, that's not everybody. My kid has great eye contact for the most part. So, not everybody's the same, but, trying to make these blanket statements, well, he doesn't have these stereotypical characteristics of autism, like all of them, that means that he can't be autistic. It's just so gross. It really is.
Agreed.
So, the Twitter account at Bedroom Junkie, the general waste, the dude who does just kick-ass animation, just volunteered to make some animated artwork for the next tweet storm, and would like a top 6 like Assange quotes or distilled messages about it. So boys and girls, everyone in between, homework.
Put it in the chat.
Yeah, put the Twitter in the chat so we can be prepared for lots of tweets, friend.
And I'm gonna take it to the lads, to Lubers and those guys.
Oh yeah,
he's
good. Like, he's really good at coming up with.
He was like doing freestyle verse today.
Yeah.
Nice. I love that guy. I'm so pissed. I was too tired to go on the other day.
Did you seriously raise your hand, Andrew?
I was typing and it was on the wrong screen. I muted myself.
Okay, you want to play?
Yeah.
Okay, now
all right, let's wrap up though. It's 8:15. I'm getting tired.
Glory does this shit to me all the time.
I would like to thank
all right, Steve, we get it. You want to speak, Steve? Oh God.
Oh my God.
I would like to thank everybody for hanging out with us on the Free Assange Vigil. I'd like to thank Josh and Kimber and everyone behind the scenes that makes this possible. All of the organizers that are doing so much to help us for DC, and people that are doing their own events across the country. Super grateful and appreciative. Thank you to Cathy for hopping on here with us. It's always wonderful having her. But most of all, I would like to thank you guys for helping us get to DC again. I am going to put the link to the GoFundMe in the chats. Please help us share it out. We have reached our fundraising goal. We know everyone is strapped for cash, and if you can donate If not, please help share the link. It's truly appreciated. At this point, we have most everything secure. The rest of it will go into bells, whistles, food, and travel, more or less. The whistles is not the like literal whistles. Like we have a shitload of whistles.
We already have those.
We do. We can always get more if we need them. We have a lot going on.
Did you do jazz hands and I missed it?
Oh, you can follow us on Twitter at action_4Assange. You can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Zigman.
Cool. I was like, wait, did I miss jazz hands? Like,
I was trying to sneak by.
okay, no,
I'm-
come on,
The first. I don't want to do it.
no. I'm gonna make you do it a lot in DC. You just wait. There's gonna be some jazz hand-drew dancing going on. Okay. And videos.
Oh, I am all the fuck in for that, dude.
You wait.
It's gonna be fucking nuts, man. You guys should all come.
It's gonna be fucking.
Come hang out with us.
You get to be fully enveloped in the cartoon that is our world.
Yeah.
That is what being there feels like.
I don't know if that's a selling point.
I can't think of people that I would rather be with while being in the like apex of concentrated evil.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I'm biased. So, I mean, like, I think we're all pretty cool. So,
When you fuckers better have a drink for me in the evil place.
we'll toast you. We'll have a toast. So, yeah. Okay. So, anyways, I'm Misty. You can find me on Twitter at Sarcasm Stardust. I also have another show called Facts on the Ground with Jesse Zerwell. And so you can check that out on Facebook. We have a Twitter page too, but I don't know that either of us check it. Sorry. But yeah, thanks to Cathy. It's always awesome to talk to her. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Seriously, I know we say this a lot, but thank you to everybody who donated for DC. Super cool. This is important, so it's nice to be able to go and that you guys trust us to go and do what we can while we're there. So we appreciate you. Thanks to my co-hosts and Sleepy Josh and Kimber. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks, guys.
My name's Steve Boykin, and I host a show called Slow News Day that you should be watching on the Rockfin, because that's where all of my stuff is. That's where you'll find me, like mostly when YouTube yanks my channel, which I'm amazed every day when I wake up and have one. I'm going to echo the thank yous for everyone who helped make DC possible. Man, it's gonna be fucking nuts. Do you guys understand how many people are going to be in Washington DC the first week of January for like what the fuck ever?
Yeah,
that's gonna be huge. We're going to like define some shit going into 2021 the first week of the year.
Good.
And we would like you guys to all be a part of that too. So if you're anywhere near DC, get down there.
And don't you want to be a part of that? Like, really? Don't you want to be a part of that? Like, that's cool. This is cool. This is gonna be awesome. There's a lot going on that week. So
nuts, dude.
Yeah.
Wild shit.
It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, so thank you guys for helping make that possible. It just we can't thank you enough. We can try by raising as much hell as humanly possible for Julian Assange and a free press and future of investigative journalism. We will. Thank you to my co-host. Thank you to Cathy Vogan from Consortium News for coming on. And it's 18 months, man. 78 consecutive weeks. That's just fucking wild. All right, y'all. Thank you, Sleepy Josh on the ones and twos, me and Panda, my co-host, and I love you guys. We'll see you soon. Good luck to us all.